Picture this. You wake up one morning, coffee in hand, only to see breaking headlines announcing that more than 700 people at one of America's leading solar companies have just lost their jobs. It's not just any company. It's Sunnova, a name once synonymous with the promise of affordable green energy for all. The news is staggering. Sunnova, a former darling of Wall Street and a symbol of the clean energy revolution, has slashed over half its workforce in one fell swoop. The question echoes nationwide. Is this the first domino in the collapse of residential solar, or a much-needed alarm bell for an industry at a crossroads? To truly understand the gravity of Sunnova's crisis, we need to rewind and trace how residential solar in the United States has arrived at this precarious moment. Less than a decade ago, solar panels glittered on rooftops from California to Connecticut, powered by optimism, generous incentives, and the dream of energy independence. Wall Street poured billions into the sector, betting big on a future fueled by the sun. Sunnova was at the epicenter of this surge, founded with a bold mission: to make solar power accessible and affordable for every American household, regardless of zip code or credit score. Between 2018 and 2024, the company grew at a blistering pace. By the close of 2024, Sunnova boasted annual revenues exceeding $800 million, a remarkable 17% jump from the previous year. To put that in perspective, very few industries saw such rapid growth in such a short window. The company reported principal proceeds of nearly $200 million, fueling expansion into new markets and innovative financing models. At first glance, it seemed Sunnova was surfing an unstoppable wave. Yet beneath this surge, the seeds of crisis were quietly sprouting. The company's business model, focused on leasing solar systems to homeowners rather than selling them outright, began to look increasingly vulnerable. As the cost of solar panels fell and consumer awareness grew, more and more homeowners wanted to own their systems, not lease them. By the second quarter of 2025, industry data showed that nearly two-thirds of new residential solar installations in the United States were directly owned by customers. This marked a seismic shift. Just a few years earlier, third-party ownership was the norm. Sunnova's leasing model, once a competitive advantage, was now losing relevance fast. At the same time, Sunnova took on massive amounts of debt to support its expansion. By mid-2025, the company's debt had swollen to over $8 billion. This figure is almost unfathomable for a company of its size, equivalent to the annual GDP of a small island nation. The burden of servicing this debt became even more crushing as interest rates climbed. The Federal Reserve's aggressive rate hikes in response to inflation made borrowing far more expensive, squeezing Sunnova's margins and cash flow. But the external environment was shifting too. Policy support, once a tailwind, became a headwind. In May of 2025, a Republican-backed budget bill in Congress threatened to eliminate key homeowner subsidies that had been the financial backbone of solar adoption across the country. The industry's anxiety only deepened when the Trump administration revoked a nearly $3 billion partial loan guarantee previously granted by the Biden White House. In the words of one consumer advocate, if these incentives disappear, solar will simply stop making financial sense for millions of American families. The financial impact was immediate and severe. Sunnova's cash generation in the final quarter of 2024 collapsed to just $2 million, a staggering drop of over 98% from the $104 million executives had confidently projected. Credit rating agencies, including both Fitch and Moody's, responded by slashing Sunnova's ratings. These downgrades sent a chilling message to investors. The company was now firmly in junk territory, with real risk of default. Desperate to keep afloat, Sunnova scrambled to secure new funding. In March of 2025, it managed to land a $185 million term loan, but at a punishing 15% interest rate. For context, this is the kind of rate typically reserved for companies on the brink of insolvency. Oaktree Capital, a well-known name in distressed asset investing, snapped up $400 million of Sunnova's debt, signaling that Wall Street was bracing for a potential restructuring or even liquidation. According to analysts at Wells Fargo, Sunnova now faces a funding deficit that could range anywhere from $280 million to as much as $700 million, an amount that dwarfs its annual cash generation. Layoffs followed swiftly. Over 700 employees, representing 55% of the entire workforce, were let go. For many, this was not just a pink slip, but a personal crisis. Skilled engineers, installers, and customer support staff who had dedicated years to building America's solar future found themselves suddenly jobless. the company's TP developer subsidiary filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, seeking to shield itself from creditors while it attempted to reorganize. Sunnova's leadership tried to put on a brave face, insisting that drastic cost-cutting and operational streamlining could save the company. They projected annual cash savings of around $70 million, with layoffs contributing roughly $35 million to that total. However, behind the scenes, morale plummeted. Rumors swirled of a potential total collapse, with some insiders fearing that even these deep cuts might not be enough to halt the downward spiral. So, what does all this turmoil mean for Sunnova's future, and for the entire U.S. residential solar industry? The reality is that the sector now stands at a crossroads, with multiple possible paths ahead, each fraught with risk and uncertainty. Let's start with the optimistic scenario, a successful restructuring and pivot. If Sunnova can negotiate with creditors to restructure its enormous debt, over $8 billion, and secure new financing, it may have a shot at reinventing itself. Some experts suggest that the company could pivot toward high-growth niches, such as energy storage solutions, smart home integration, or community solar projects. These segments are less dependent on traditional rooftop solar leasing and are seeing robust demand. Supportive government policies, especially at the state level, could play a pivotal role in facilitating this recovery. As one executive at J.P. Morgan remarked, while Sunnova has some time to improve its cash generation, the path ahead is likely to be more challenging than ever before. There is also the possibility of acquisition and industry consolidation. Large utility companies, global energy giants, or private equity firms could swoop in, acquiring Sunnova's assets at a steep discount. While this might bring operational efficiencies and inject much-needed capital, it could also lead to further job losses and a less competitive market. The residential solar sector might end up dominated by a handful of mega players, making it harder for smaller, innovative firms to survive. Historical parallels can be drawn here. Think of the consolidation of the American auto industry in the early 20th century, which left only a few giants standing while countless smaller firms disappeared. The most concerning scenario, however, is prolonged financial distress leading to bankruptcy and liquidation. If Sunnova cannot bridge its funding gap, which again analysts estimate could be anywhere from $280 million to $700 million, it may be forced to sell off assets, lay off even more workers, and ultimately shut its doors for good. The ripple effects would extend far beyond Sunnova. Thousands of homeowners with leased solar systems could face service disruptions, warranty voids, or even repossessions. Investors who poured billions into the sector might lose confidence, pulling back capital not just from Sunnova, but from the entire residential solar market. But Sunnova's struggle is just the tip of the iceberg. The challenges it faces, rising interest rates, policy backpedals, and shifting consumer preferences, are affecting every company in the residential solar space. Take the policy landscape, for instance. California, the nation's largest solar market, has already slashed incentives for new rooftop installations, and other states are considering similar moves. At the federal level, the prospect of eliminating key tax credits and subsidies looms large, especially with the political winds shifting. As one industry expert warned, if the U.S. government pulls the plug on solar incentives, we could see a wave of bankruptcies and a dramatic slowdown in adoption. Interest rates are another formidable headwind. When money is cheap, companies like Sunnova can borrow to fund growth and offer customers attractive financing options. But as rates climb, financing costs eat into profits, and homeowners face higher monthly payments for solar systems. This dynamic is already playing out. In 2025, the share of new solar installations owned directly by customers reached 64%, while third-party ownership dropped to just 36%. The era of leasing may be drawing to a close. The consequences for consumers are significant. If you're a homeowner considering solar, today's landscape demands caution. Don't just judge providers by the panels they offer or the warranties they promise. Dig deeper into the financial health of the company itself. A reputable, resilient provider is your best safeguard against unfinished installations, lapses in service, or the nightmare of a bankrupt installer. Consumer protection groups are urging buyers to demand transparency and to consider ownership over leasing when possible. Investors, too, should heed the lessons of Sunnova's story. The renewable energy sector, while full of promise, is not immune to financial turbulence. Policy risk is real. A single election or budget cycle can completely alter the economics of entire industries. Credit downgrades, missed interest payments, and sudden layoffs can happen even to companies that were growing rapidly just months before. Savvy investors are now watching for signs of consolidation, distressed asset sales, and the emergence of new business models less dependent on government support. For policymakers and advocates of climate action, the events at Sunnova are a clarion call. The path to a sustainable energy future is not guaranteed. Policy stability and long-term commitment are essential. Without them, even the most innovative companies can be derailed by shifting incentives and political uncertainty. Collective advocacy for consistent support of renewables is more than good politics. It's the engine of progress. The lessons of other clean tech sectors are instructive. The wind industry, electric vehicles, and energy storage have all experienced boom and bust cycles triggered by policy changes. Solar is no different, and the stakes, both economic and environmental, could not be higher. Looking forward, experts are divided on Sunnova's fate. Some believe the company can pull off a turnaround with aggressive restructuring and a strategic pivot. Others see bankruptcy or acquisition as inevitable, given the scale of its debt and the rapidly changing market. What is clear is that Sunnova's crisis will send shockwaves across the residential solar industry, with lasting effects on jobs, innovation, and consumer confidence. Here's an intriguing fact that might surprise you. In the second quarter of 2025, more than 6 in 10 new residential solar systems in the United States were owned outright by consumers, not leased or financed through third-party companies. This signals a fundamental shift toward decentralization and homeowner empowerment, the very trends that may define the next phase of America's solar journey. So, what's the bottom line for you? If you value deep insights into global economics and technology, this story is a powerful reminder that markets are always evolving, and yesterday's winners can become tomorrow's cautionary tales. Whether Sunnova emerges stronger or succumbs to its challenges, the lessons are clear. Adapt, stay informed, and never underestimate the impact of policy and consumer choice. If you found this analysis helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the global economy and cutting-edge technology, and share your perspective in the comments. Do you see Sunnova's crisis as a warning sign or just a temporary setback on the road to a solar-powered future? Let's spark a